So I call this public session to order, and will you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I think there are a couple changes to the consent agenda.
So if we could add to the consent agenda, the retirement of Deanne Bartlett. And that's CHS high special ed. And the additions of Stephen Jagodzinski. He will be taking on a maintenance role. And then as in kind of a receipt of this information, Tracy Ahern is going to be the RMS secretary.
Okay.
So out
So
of
a
those,
motion?
yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion to add those items to the agenda, the consent agenda.
Thank you, John.
I'll second, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. I'll do a roll call. John,
Aye.
thank you. Christine,
Aye.
thank you. Lisa,
Aye.
thank you. Charlie, thank you. Patty,
Aye.
thank you. And Alicia,
Yes.
thank you. I say aye, so 7-0-0. That's been added. Okay, next up, we have an action.
I have another change, Marcia.
What's that?
I have another change.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Agenda. I'd like to change the sequence of, I'd like to place the superintendent's report before public comments.
Okay. Got it. And do we need a motion? Is that a motion?
I don't think we need a motion.
Okay, that's fine. Great. All right, so fine. We'll put the superintendent's before public comments. That seems to make good sense. Any other changes? Okay. Then let's move on. We have an action item right off the top. A budget transfer.
Okay. I guess I'm speaking to that.
Okay.
All right. The current budget was adopted almost a year ago. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Predicting salaries and benefits was done at both the micro and macro level. At the micro level, we knew the salary and benefit cost of existing employees. What we didn't know was who would leave at the end of the school year, except for retirees, and who would leave during the current year. We didn't know what the salary and benefit cost would be for the replacements or for the replacements for retirees. At the macro level, we had a salaries and benefits total budget at the beginning of the year. As people left and new people were hired, funding was moved between salary and benefit line items, but always staying within the total salaries and benefit budget. When it became apparent that special education was going to be insufficient and we were going to have to use funding for the special education trust, we had to ensure that the special education budget shortfall was based on the original special education budget. This means that we had to separate special education salary benefit line items from the rest of the salary and benefit line items. As a result of the shifting of salary and benefit costs due to managing salary and benefits at a macro level, when we hired people, the special education salary and benefit line items were overstated by $162,456, and the remainder of the salary benefit line items were understated. Just to give you an idea of the scope of this, it's less than 1% of the salaries and benefits budget, 0.8% to be exact. So it's important that we restore the special education budget to its original state for transparency purposes. If we're going to make use of the trust fund, people need to understand the necessity based on pure education, pure special education funding needs. The Finance Committee recommends making this transfer.
All right, thank you, Charlie.
Questions? Okay, so I would make a motion that we transfer $162,456 from the line items in the attached budget transfer sheet to the line items in the attached budget transfer sheet.
Second.
All right, that's Patty.
Patty.
Okay, thank you, Patty. If there's no further discussion, I'll do a roll call vote. John,
Aye.
thank you. And Christine,
Aye.
thank you. Lisa,
Aye.
thank you. Charlie,
Aye.
thank you. Patty,
Aye.
thank you. Alicia,
Yes.
thank you. And I say aye, so that carries 700. Okay. So we are 6 minutes early. Do we, is there anything else we want to do for 6 minutes?
If I could just say a few words about some of these individuals who are retiring or resigning.
That would be a perfect time.
I
to
would
do
only
that.
need a few minutes. Yeah, exactly. So on tonight's agenda, we have Brian Lloyd, who has been with the district for 27 years. Brian has been in the maintenance position. He has made sure that he has done everything that he has possibly can through multiple directors, multiple people working with him. He's been a steady force throughout this district to make certain that these schools over the 27 years or multiple years here in the district have continued, the HVAC systems continued to, that the HVAC systems continue to go as well as they have, doing a lots and many repairs. We're all aware of the age of the facilities, and so he's just been, I would say, the constant force that has been here in the district. So I wish Brian all the best as he goes into his next area. We will certainly miss him, but we appreciate everything that he has done. Ennis Ward, she has been with us a short period of time, has really left a impression on our high school, has done some great work in the area of school counseling. She has an opportunity that she cannot pass up. We would never want her to pass up the opportunity that she has, and so I know that she has had a spectacular time here and has grown a lot. We will miss her and wish her the best of luck as she goes on to something that is closer to where she lives and also where her passion is. Deanne Bartlett, been in this district a long time, over 30 years. Special education teacher, steady presence in this school. I had the privilege of co-teaching for a year with Ms. Bartlett, mathematics, algebra 1, several years ago. and always comes prepared, knows exactly what the learners need. And we will miss her again. Has been offered something. She did not go out and seek this. She was called and has been given an opportunity to do something that she should not pass up for multiple reasons. We wish her the best as she continues to grow. I think she is a great example of an educator who continues to keep learning at the forefront. And so she's going to be continuing to learn and to do some great things for some other children in other locations. So we thank Deanne for her time with us. There are a couple others here that are resignations. Mike Needham was here for a short period of time. He did some good work while he was here in the area of getting our custodial systems up and running and our evaluation systems in place. Laura Rosenthal has been with the district for a long time, but she'll be finishing out the year, but is looking to retire as well, I believe retire. Tracy Ahern, we added her name. Really excited to have Tracy back with us. So she'll be coming in, I believe, on a Friday. She'll be the new RMS secretary. So thank you for that time.
Right, thanks. So we're now 2 minutes ahead of schedule. I think if we call it to order, call the public hearing to order, we should be okay.
I think we should
1
wait
minute
till
early?
7 o'clock. Yep.
Exactly 7? Okay, we got 1
Exactly
minute.
7. Mhm.
Okay. Well, the weather's beautiful.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad here today.
I guess just for the benefit of people in the digital and in-person audience, we're waiting for 7 o'clock just because we have a scheduled public hearing on a couple items. So we're going to handle that first, then we'll get back into the school board meeting. So
It's important to note that for this public hearing as well, Nick, I believe we have Carrie, Broderick, and Jen online. So if there are any questions, the two of them will be best able to answer.
we do have Carrie. I don't see Jen yet.
Okay.
All right, I have 7 o'clock. So I call the public hearing to order. And the purpose of the public hearing is to acceptance of some unanticipated revenues, and then also the expenditure from the Special Education Contingency Trust Fund. So starting with the first one. Is someone going to talk to that first?
We want to have Carrie speak to it. She does have her hand raised on the.
If she does, then let's have Carrie speak to it. That would, yeah, that's fine.
That would be perfect. Thank you.
All right, Carrie, you should have the ability to talk now.
Yep, she's muted.
Now can you
There
hear
we
me?
go. There we
Yeah,
go.
there you go.
Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't realize mine was muted. Okay, so I just wanted to speak about the unanticipated revenues. These are both funds that we received from the American Rescue Plan Act. So we received an additional $83,119 in American Rescue Plan IDEA preschool grant monies and $12,007 from the American Rescue Plan for Homeless Children and Youth Grant. So with these grants, the grants are reimbursement only. So when we have the expenditures approved through the state as eligible expenditures for these grants, we pay for the items and then submit a report to the state and they reimburse us. So it's a net zero impact. So there's no impact to the taxpayers or the general fund budget because we're receiving reimbursement for our expenditures, and it's through the grant fund, the special revenue line that these get processed.
All right, great. So I don't know if any board member has any questions for Carrie.
I would just say this is just like a housekeeping item as I see it. Obviously, we want to accept these funds.
Accept them as unanticipated revenues, yes.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I'll make a-
since it's, yes, thank you. I was just going to say, it's a public hearing, but I don't think there's necessarily public comment coming on that one.
You want me to just explain the process for public commenting should somebody want to?
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, anybody in the public physically here, if you want to make a public comment specific to this item, we can hand you a microphone. Make sure that you have the microphone with you before you speak. Otherwise, it won't get picked up into the Zoom broadcast. Anybody remotely, you can use the hand raise feature on your computer, tablet, phone, whatever you're watching this on. We'll see the hand and we can ultimately answer it then.
Thanks.
All right, and I'm not seeing anybody.
All right. So Charlie, I believe you were in the middle of,
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the unanticipated revenues, $88,119 from the ARPA idea preschool grant and $12,007 from the ARP homeless children and youth grant.
all right, thank you, Charlie.
Carrie, just a question. This is for Carrie Broderick. Do we have to have that motion made in the school board meeting and after a public hearing, or can it be done during a public hearing? My understanding is that public hearing is to hear.
Just to hear, and then we
Yeah,
have to do the motion after.
Mhm.
Right, well, the public hearing is so that the community can ask questions and we explain how the expenditures are, where the money's coming from and how the expenditures are being handled. The motion, I'm not sure. I believe Ruben is correct.
Okay, so Charlie, hang on to that. And let's do the second bullet point. And then once we're back into public session, we'll take that motion.
Ms.
Okay,
Jen, I know Jen was going to speak about this one. Do you know if she's on?
Jen has
I
just texted me and
don't-
indicated that she is available to comment.
Do you have the slide I sent, Nick?
Yes, I believe I do. Just give me a sec.
So Charlie, do you want to make a comment on this one, and then Jen can answer any questions if need be?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm working on pulling that up right now, Charlie. Okay. So go back here.
Do you want me to explain how the process works for the trust funds while that's getting pulled up?
Yeah, why don't you do that while that's being pulled up just real fast, that would be great. Couple minutes.
Okay, so the board would make a motion for a not to exceed amount up to a certain amount from the trust funds. The trust funds are also reimbursement only, so we would expend the expenses and then submit to the trustees for reimbursement based on what the school board authorizes the expenditures up to a certain amount of. And the trustees would then send us a check to reimburse us for that cost. So we would front the cash up front and then they would submit reimbursement for the approved expenditures. So we would not draw from the fund in advance. So we would only submit to the fund, the amounts that we needed in order to reimburse the district for the excess special education costs. So if anybody has any questions on that, let me know.
Thanks, Carrie. All right, and it looks like Jen's there.
I think Charlie wanted
am.
to.
Oh.
Okay. Did you want to speak
So
first?
Charlie,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're starting out with a $7 million approved budget. Okay, that was the adopted budget that the voters approved last March. So far in year-to-date transactions, we have almost $4 million that we spent so far. We've got about 2.7 million in encumbrances. An encumbrance means things that have purchase orders that have been submitted and approved, but we haven't received the invoices yet, so they're not paid. Okay, so they're encumbered. We have $440,000 in projected expenses for out-of-district placements, for transportation, and for contracted services. Contracted services have to do with services like therapy, speech therapy, those kind of things. We have $117,000, actually 118, projected salary and benefit expenses for replacement positions. As people know, we have lost some instructional associates who support our special education students, and we're trying to fill those positions as rapidly as we can. And so we have a projected salary of what it's going to cost us to do that. We don't know for certain, but that's a ballpark number right now. So right now, we're looking at being around $188,000 over budget at the end of the year. And that amount is rising, by the way. Every time we submit anytime we purchase anything, the inflation rate's jacking up the prices. Anytime that we require any kind of contracted services, the prices go up. So only 2/3 of the school year is complete. So we've got another whole third of the school year to go. We anticipate the shortfall to be approximately $260,000 by the end of the year. And so what we'd like to do is to authorize submitting invoices to the trustees and authorize withdrawal of up to $260K from the Special Education Trust Fund for that purpose.
thanks, Charlie. Is there anything Jen wants to add to?
Charlie pretty much has it. The only
Okay,
other thing I would say is, can you hear me?
yes,
The only other thing I would say is that every effort will be made to use the funds from our budget first and from the reserve fund last.
great. Thank you for that. I guess public hearing, let's see if there's anyone from the public that has questions or comments on this.
All right, we'll start with the physical audience. Do we have any comments? All right, we have nobody physical and anybody remote. If you want to just raise your hand, we can acknowledge you. I am not seeing anybody.
Okay. All righty then. I guess we're ready for closing the public hearing. And then we can go to the making motions. So I'll bring the public hearing to a close now. And back to our regular meeting action item. Charlie?
Yeah, I'd like to remake a motion
Thank
to
you.
to accept as unanticipated revenues, $83,119 from the ARP Idea Preschool Grant and $12,007 from the ARP Homeless Children and Youth Grant.
All right, thanks, Charlie. I need a second.
Second,
Thank you, John. And roll call vote. John?
aye.
Thank you, Christine.
Yes.
Thank you, Lisa.
Aye.
Thank you, Charlie.
Aye.
Thank you, Patty.
Aye.
Thank you, Alicia.
Yes.
Thank you. And I say yes. So that passes 700. And then the second bullet point,
I'd like to make a motion to authorize expenditure of $260,000, up to $260,000 from the Special Education Contingency Trust Fund.
thank you, Charlie. I need a second.
I'll second, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Roll call vote if there's no further discussion. Okay, John,
Aye.
thank you. Christine,
Yes.
thank you. Lisa,
Yes.
thank you. Charlie,
Aye.
thank you. Patty,
Aye.
thank you. Alicia,
Yes.
and I say aye. So that passes 700. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so now we're up to the superintendent's report.
Great, thank you. So congratulations to actually a lot of our teams, our cheer squad, who I guess I don't hear them practicing right now. They were practicing a little bit earlier, but they had won first place in a competition that they had gone to a couple weeks ago, or weekends ago. So they're preparing for the next competition. And our robotics, our first robotics team, I was able to be up at SNHU during that time frame and be able to see them in their final round. It was the semifinal round. I think they came in 5th place overall in the state, which was really great. Second year in that program, and so they've come a long way. It was really neat to see the way they compete. They were first for a long period of time, and then toward the end, some other teams had caught up, and then they end up getting into groups. And the end of it all is like this kind of group competition where they work in tandem with other teams, alliances, I guess you can say. So it was really neat to see. And so congratulations to them. Our boys basketball team did end up having a good game, but did end up falling in the preliminary rounds. Our girls basketball team won their quarterfinal round and is going to be set to play on Wednesday for the semifinals. They have a late game. I think it's around 7 or 7:30 that it's scheduled for, but in Bedford on Wednesday. And should they move on from there, they're playing a team on Wednesday that they haven't played yet before. The finals would be that following Sunday. And I believe that's at Keene State College. So a lot going on with our students, with our learners. So it's pretty exciting. From a report standpoint today, we would want to look at kind of some New Hampshire SAS interim assessments, basically middle of the year assessments, just to kind of look into seeing how we're doing on some of our goals. Committees that are going to be formed or need to be formed during the spring of this year, committees that maybe some members here will be on, community members will be asked to join, teachers, support staff, and so forth. And then some COVID-19 data discussion that we'll have after that. So if we go to the next slide, the first round here is that the grades 6, 7, and 8 over the last week and a half have taken the New Hampshire state assessment, interim assessments. They're about an hour long each, English language, arts, math. I think they've also been doing some science as well. They're done a little bit differently than the math and English language arts are. The math department in the middle school this past summer said, hey, we need to improve some things, certainly after COVID, but even before COVID, there were some patterns that we had wanted to stop. So the goal this first year was to stop the pattern of really struggling in that area of mathematics, wanting to have 70% basically by the end of this year, approaching or proficient and above. And so I will say that in looking at our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade midterm assessments, we have mostly that right there right now. So if we were to take the final assessment right now, we have not quite 40% proficient yet, but if you add the approaching along with that, we would be in that 70% range in 6th and 7th grade, a little bit less than that in 8th grade. But we are going to be continuing to work on strategies based upon that data to continue to work with our kids to get to where they need to be. Similarly, ELA also showed that we were well on track. There were a couple weak areas that we need to look at further in the area of writing. We need to improve in all areas, and we'll continue to do that. But just some areas like, okay, we need to focus on this type of writing a little bit more than perhaps what we haven't done. And some of what they're being tested on, they haven't even been taught yet. So the fact that some are proficient already, let's say 30% are proficient in an area, in ELA, it'll be closer to 40 or 50% proficient in that area already. Then you would think that as we continue to teach more of the curriculum and go deeper into the curriculum, and they have opportunity to also get some remediation in that process, that would continue to move forward in that way. Go to the next slide. This right here, committees to be formed. We do have a Rindge Memorial School principal committee that is being formed. I almost have everyone signed up for that. And so by the middle of this week, I'll be sending information out to them as to what our meeting schedule is going to be looking like. And so that whole process will start in early March. Teacher support and evaluation system. It's been a couple of years since we've been able to look at that to assess and refine that. The last time we refined that process, we looked at the SLOs, the student learning objectives. We changed those to being more, to provide teachers more options in how they showed their ability to utilize data to inform instruction. So part of that was really stressing collaboration, which is what we call kind of the social capital. Improving social capital research would show that yes, human capital or people's education level or years in service and so forth, that's kind of human capital. That's important, but there's been a lot more research lately done that that in tandem with more collaboration and working well with both horizontally with their peers as well as vertically with the administration, that student outcomes increase. And so teacher support and evaluation system, however, from the standards perspective of Danielson's standards, we have done some alignment with Danielson in our strategic design, but we haven't gone any further. We haven't made any decisions, any determinations, anything else that we need to do to see what's working and what's not been working, or what can be better. So that we'll be putting that together very soon. Best educational model. We had a lot of conversations about schools during the budget season. That makes sense, because that's what we're here for, is to talk about school, but also how it's structured. And so there are less expensive ways to structure a school. There might be better educationally sound ways to structure a school. Elementary, we've done a lot of restructuring over the years with middle and high school, with administration changes, guidance changes, having more flexibility with how teachers are utilized through the school, students being able to take classes if they are ready for them a lot sooner. And then, then we have the elementary, where we stayed pretty much the same over the past several years. Our strategic design has some specific outcomes that we're looking for, but we have, as stated here, we're looking for what's best for our kids, the work environment for our staff. We know that COVID has certainly shown us the importance of taking care of ourselves and making sure that our staff are healthy mentally and provided the support that they need. And then and the way that the school actually functions contributes to that. And then, of course, financial discussions for our community as well. How do we find the most streamlined approach to doing things so that we're not seeing this up and down type of financial increases or decreases based upon students having to leaving the district or coming into the district. How can we have something a little more stable than that? So that's another, that will take a little bit longer. There's going to have to be some research that's going to be involved in that. And then I would imagine toward the beginning of the year, August, September, maybe some conversations and presentations to the board prior to us going into a budget season. Student information system. We currently use Web to School as our student information system. It needs to go. It just needs to go. We've known that for a little while. We've been waiting for the state to come out with their student information system because the state was going to pay for a statewide student information system rather than us paying for it. We started to actually research these along with our learning management system and found a couple that certainly are very strong choices. Those same choices were the state had also cited as being strong, but I have heard nothing since, and I have sent an email to the state asking for information where we're at with that. I have not received any reply. I'll reach out again. In the meantime, we have to move forward to do something different because it is not. It's an old system and it's run its course. Messing up report cards, things of that nature. It's not the best. We've outlived its life. Building Improvements Committee, we have again had a lot of conversation during budget season about improvements. We took away a warrant article having to do with bathrooms across the district. Those bathrooms are still in need of upgrades, some more than others. There are other academic and upkeep areas across the district that we need to consider within our improvements. I was asking John LeClaire to go and find out exactly, can you find the plans? I'd like to know what the new school would have cost, then, which I guess the bond would have been about 16.3 million at that point in time, would have been paid off next year. And find out what it would cost right now to go that avenue. Because as we look at some of our architectural work that we are asking the Turner Group to do, we have some consolidating, I think, of the funds to really focus on the items that we really want to look at. And before getting architectural work, or at least in the conversation of getting architectural work on maybe whether it be athletic upgrades, new facilities, renovations, anything like that. Certainly, I mean, these new, they're 20 years old now, but these drawings of, this is a renovation of the middle school. So this isn't a new one, but it was going in tandem with maybe like the conceptual plans of the new high school. And there are a couple different variations of that. This is not the one that they landed on when they put it forward to vote. But it would have, like I said, it would have been paid off next year, and we'd be, I think, probably having different conversations. In those plans, there were plans of having appropriately sized gymnasiums, auditoriums, all of those things this community knew was important at that point in time. We still have some of those needs, and we need to think about those, whether it's using this existing campus, which is kind of what we're going on the assumption with right now, or whether we're going to think about utilizing either land that we have already on 202, or we do something different. But we do want to be future focused as opposed to thinking about in the moment. It's hard to see the future. Building aid doesn't exist any longer like it did. It's there's a little bit out there. So those days are over with, but I think we need to act with the best information possible. So we'll be getting the Building Improvements Committee back together to talk about what's transpired through the course of this year, what the warrant articles, we'll do it after the vote to see if the HVAC system is able to be addressed or not. And then we'll go from there as to planning next steps. So then we're on to decision-making matrix. Currently where we're at is in the masking recommended, social distancing required indoors. That's our current status. That is based on, although we were a little higher, I think we were in the moderate range for RMS for illness last week for maybe a day or two. But by and large, we've been below 10% in that area, but the substantial community transmission has been in place for quite some time, and it is going to be in place for a little bit more. The positivity rate, the more people are using home tests, and the people who are going to the hospitals are the ones who are really feeling sick, and so your positivity rates are going to be higher, and it could take a while because the red is a 7-day average, and so you're constantly looking at an average. Oh, neat. Didn't know that happened. Can we just click one more time?
There you
Thank
go.
you. There we go. It's not. All right. Well, if you can just show that piece right there. This is the this is as of this past Friday, the curve. We look at this. I have some arrows pointing there. The arrow is pointing to Cheshire County. We're in the dark blue, which means that we are in that high transmission rate. We also have an arrow in that from the current levels pointing at that declining curve. So we were looking at a very exponentially positive curve for a period of time through the month of, well, a little bit in November, then December, then January was when it kind of hit that peak, and then it came down. The circle is where at the time and the level that we required masking. So that's just all kind of some information to provide. Those numbers, I believe, are still lower today from another site that I've gone on. If we go to the next slide, we look specifically at Jaffrey and Rindge. If we were to have looked at the last couple of times that I've provided this information, the number in Jaffrey wouldn't have been 17, the 14-day, new cases in 14 days. In 36 in Rindge, it would have been closer to 80, 90s, around those areas. A couple weeks makes a big difference. And you can see the active cases currently in the parentheses there. Vaccination percentages, I actually did not update that, but it's unlikely to have gone up by more than 1% or sorry, more than 0.1% or 0.2%. So I have some recommendations. I think if we go and look at that, we don't need to go back. I'm just saying if we went back to that other slide where we had gone and made that decision, we followed the data, the upwards trajectory in January. We knew what was being projected at that point in time, and based upon that and our need to make sure that we had our teaching staff present so that we could have in-person school, so that we could see if we could reduce any clusters from happening. The board decided to go in that time frame to do a universal masking. They went away from the matrix that was adopted at that point in time. This has been a practice we've done for 2 years. We have guidelines, a framework, but we can make other decisions when we see data changing, because data is not static. We can do the exact same thing right now. We don't need to stay with our matrix if we're seeing that the trajectory is going in another direction and waiting for the community transmission to be in yellow or green. I believe is not necessary. We have not had many cases within our schools over the last couple of weeks. There are 2 cases that I didn't report. I got late information, so there are 2 more cases over the past week that were not reported, but still very minor. So within the same logic of what we did with January, knowing what the data was going to do then, and now seeing what the data is doing now, listening to where our neighboring states are going. Our government in New Hampshire won't say anything, but we do have Massachusetts next door, and we're very close to that area. makes sense to listen to some of what they're talking about. That we move away from the guidance as we did in January, but go in the reverse direction. I think it's a consistent, logical approach, and to make masking optional. And then on number, that would just be, I just took a little picture of what masking optional means, social distancing, etc., non-required. And then also communication. People are, I'm sensing, people are tired of getting my emails on a regular basis, reporting one case here, 2 cases here, or if we had 6 cases, whatever. We do have this in the framework that is what I have to do. If we could, I have a little green drawing around that area. If we could agree to adjust that so that we're just reporting the information on the website itself. So people who want to know the information, we'll give that information to people, but not push it out. So that when I do send an email out, or if Nick sends an email out, people are going to be like, oh, this might be information that I'm interested in, instead of like ignoring it, for instance. So we worked really hard over the past 2 to 3 years to improve our communications. We over communicate in many ways. We know that, but that was the goal, to do that. That being said, sometimes you can get communication fatigue, and then the messaging that you do believe people need to be aware of more, it does not get read, and for good reason. So those are just recommended. I'm asking you to consider that. I think it's consistent with our decision making over the last couple of years of how we've done business, coming back in person last year from being remote. We did that earlier. We were right then. I think this is the right move now.
Right. I assume that's your last slide, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions, comments for superintendent?
Could we go around or?
Sure. John?
No, I don't have any questions or comments at this time. Thank you for the
Okay.
update.
Thank you. Christine?
So, all right, so I'm in favor of the suggestions. I just want to know what our plan is if we start getting back into the next bizarre viral season.
Yeah, well, I think we have gotten into a habit of continuously looking at this information. We're not out of the woods yet from the standpoint of the national dialogue, and certainly we could have another variant. It would seem that Omicron has dissipated here and was not as strong. A lot more, well, we saw that it was a lot more contagious. That's for certain. Again, we said we'd look at the data. We looked at the data. We didn't have clusters in January, even though we had a huge increase in the number of cases. We had better staff attendance during that time frame than we did in the month of December, when it was much lower. So I think that can you show causation that it happened, that the masking, where I don't know if you can do that, but regardless, we did what we thought was right at that point in time, and we were able to have school in person, which has been the entire goal of this year's reopening framework. So if we do have data that goes in another direction, I think you reconvene and you talk about it. But you have to look at, not only are we looking at the number of the spread, but also the severity of that. And so we also talked about that at the beginning of the year, that just because people get sick, if they're not being hospitalized, if they're not having, extreme, if our kids aren't having significant symptoms and so forth, there's a balance to doing things. So I think that we have to keep on having those conversations.
It's having the staff healthy enough to conduct the classes.
Yeah. that's a huge concern always.
All right. Christine, any follow-up on that, or is that,
Nope, I'm good.
okay, thanks. Lisa?
Yeah, could we go back to the slide on the committees, please? So I'm very excited about this. Who are the intended committee members? Who are you thinking? That's a lot to add. It's a lot to add to your plate. Yeah, but who would be attending these committees? Who would be the members?
Yeah, so the student information system would be a pretty small committee. Those people know who they are, and it doesn't, we don't have to worry about it. I don't think that we'd need parents necessarily, or a huge group of teachers or school board members. And if the state says we have one, we're going to pay for it, guess what? We're using it anyway. And there's no decision there. And the two that we had heard that they had chosen are much stronger than what we have. So it's a improvement regardless. The Building Improvements Committee, we have a group of people who met earlier in the community that came in and have said that they want to continue. So I'll be reaching out to that group. We have internal people on that committee already. We can always add to it. That's not a problem. I do help facilitate that one. The teacher support and evaluation system, I might pop in a little bit, but I have the administrators on that committee who already want to do it. I know that the JREA will appoint people to be on that committee as well. And then at least one board member should be on that. Charlie has been the representative of the board on that committee for years. So I'd go to him first, but if certainly, there could be other decisions made. The elementary education model, we've alluded to this. This has not gone out. It's you have to research and know and find out. Maybe we have the right models already. Maybe we don't do anything, but you need to know whether it is or not. And so that will involve several elementary teachers, possibly some support staff there as well. Board members are going to need to be involved in that. Some administration, the elementary administrators have already been chosen, or they've chosen themselves for that. And but we're gonna have to reach out to the community and explain what it is we're going to do and what the commitment is, because it's going to be a little bit more of a commitment than the other ones, because you do have to do some research. You have to find out what other schools are doing. You have to find out when we say research, it has what peer-reviewed research, what that is. There's like tons and tons of research out there, but we have to be held to a standard that means that it has been vetted through multiple avenues, or that there's some sort of growth data that has gone along with it or something.
I would like to make a recommendation on the Building Improvements Committee. My feeling is we are very insular in how we fund things. And I would really appreciate if we could have somebody who could learn about grants, federal, state, whatever, but somebody who knew that system to help us as we're looking toward hopefully making some big changes. We keep asking, our constituents to put money, and we're asking nothing of the state, it feels, and I know that there's money around. It's just there's people who do this for a living, and it would be really nice if we could find people who understood the process and how to find things and how to ask to professionally help us get money outside of the Jaffrey Ridge taxpayers. That would be lovely. So I'd just like to see that. And then going back to the mask, some school districts have gone to a weekly reporting model rather than a daily. Does that make sense? If we're doing it, putting it online, does that make sense to simply on Friday, we're going to update weekly rather than, having to pop it in, or is it an easy thing to just pop in?
Nick, you want to answer that one if you could?
Yeah, so
What would be best?
if we were to make that change, it wouldn't be a huge burden on any one person because we're already collecting all the data internally anyway. So it literally just, all we would do is the existing matrix, we could just add an additional spot and we could just do active cases by school. And then it would be a copy and paste at around 2, 3 o'clock every day, or, you know, whenever that person that does it can get to it. So it would just be a daily task that would take maybe 30 seconds at most. So
I think it's a
would-
logical step down, and I get enough emails from a variety of mindsets and directions, and I know that if people were to see a school spike in an area, they would want to know that day so they could make an informed decision about whether they're sending their child to school the next day. Similar with other types of situations, if we, you know, provide the community with, you know, we had a bomb scare or something like that. And some people, it may not be legitimate. You give them the information, everything's safe. People still want to make that choice for themselves. They don't want the school making the choice for them. So that's the kind of mentality I would, you know, yeah, I think weekly is fine, but the purpose would be to give people an update if they were looking for that.
That's it for me.
All right, thanks, Lisa. Charlie?
I'm all set.
All right, thank you. Patty?
I'm all set, thank you.
Thank you. Alicia?
I'm all set.
Okay. I'll just have a quick comment that it's really nice to hear about like what's happening with our assessments and thinking about the committees and all that kind of stuff, and not have our sole focus be COVID. So thank you. And I'm, you know, I agree with recommendations that have been made, but so, okay. So we have a public comment time.
All right, so this is Nicholas Handy, Communications Coordinator and School Board Secretary. Again, we do have both a remote audience and an in-person audience. So again, in-person audience, if you would like to make any sort of public comment, we do have a microphone right here. I do ask that before you make any comment, you do have the microphone on you. You're not going to actually hear any audio amplification in the room. It's purely to capture Zoom. And then for our remote audience, you have the ability to chime in by using the hand raise feature at the bottom of your screen, whether it's tablet, computer, or phone. You press the button and it'll give us a little hand and we can acknowledge you. Anybody who makes public comment, please read the policy that's up on the screen to make sure that you're adhering to that. And then first and last name and town of residence before making any sort of public comment. So do we want to take in person first, and then we can
Yep.
give the remote a chance to queue up?
Yep.
Just kind of in that general area. We have a camera to capture right here. Can you hear me, Marcia?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Megan Caruana. I live in Ringe and I have a child who attends RMS. What I had prepared to say today goes along with what Ruben already talked about, but I figured in the chance that some of you are still undecided as to how you felt about what he shared, I would still say what I had prepared. I'm speaking here tonight to ask the school board to consider eliminating the matrix and the masking requirements as we've seen happen throughout the country and in the districts around us. Each school and classroom within the district is enforcing the current matrix restrictions differently. Some may say that masking isn't an issue right now because it's optional and they aren't required to wear them. This seems to be the case in the middle and high school. But in my experience as a parent of a kindergartner, it is a very different environment in the elementary schools. My child has had to wear a mask every day and often this entire school year. Wearing a mask has been their default, even though it would be my preference that she not wear one at all. It has been very frustrating to feel like, depending on the school, classroom, or person in authority, the expectations and discipline on mask wearing has varied. Please let it be clear that my frustration and criticisms are not directed at the teachers and staff because I know that they are doing their best with the information that they have been given. My frustration and criticism is with the rules that the school board has implemented. At this point, you have to ask if what we were doing really makes sense. And given the declining rates and the overall lack of significant morbidity in our school-age children, I think it's very reasonable to take a masks optional approach indefinitely. I understand the intentions of the board when creating the matrix, although I personally have been against the decision. It feels like it has been used as a facade for virtue signaling and control, especially when in January you made a decision to completely ignore the matrix and institute mandatory masking anyway. Let's redirect our focus to the students in our schools and allow masks to be a choice for each individual. You must take into account the negative effects these restrictions will have on our children, especially for our younger learners. It is time to reevaluate and move forward and not allow these unnecessary restrictions to continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Stacy Garcia from Jaffrey. My kids attend all the schools. My question was for the school board. I would like some more data on immunocompromised kids and teachers that might be going through cancer treatments or any kind of health issues that it would be more helpful for them to wear a mask. I don't know if we could gather some data on the exact numbers. I just want to respect all people and families that might be struggling with kids that might be having health issues.
Thank you. Is anyone else in public?
Judy Unger Clark from Ringe. I have a different note here for you. After deliberative session has been completed with elections just around the corner, I want to give a heartfelt thank you to all who have served our towns through some extremely difficult times. Patty Farmer and Chairman Marcia Gustafson Beltate, with your terms expiring, thank you for your guidance and expertise. And for Alicia Stenerson, thank you for running for re-election to carry on the continuing your service on the board and for our towns. I also applaud the district for their openness in conducting business via an interactive Zoom and filing all the minutes and video link documents on the district webpage. It's kind of incredible to be able to binge watch school board meetings. I'm also impressed with the efficiency of working with the district office. Recently, I stopped in totally unannounced at the superintendent's office with a question and effectively got an answer and documents to support my question. So thank you. But I do have some real concerns moving forth in these very peculiar times, and it pertains to what I perceive as issues with parental rights and states of New Hampshire's educational directions. What sent up a red flag was yesterday morning on the CBS Sunday morning show. There was a feature, and it was an attack of free speech in our schools. What caught my attention was when they highlighted the trend in New Hampshire, featuring a history teacher from Hollis, New Hampshire. Now that was yesterday. Today, I came across an article in a Spanish newspaper, El País. I read the English version. But yes, this was a Spanish newspaper. I was shocked to see that New Hampshire was being discussed in an article concerning off-limit topics with schools, teachings, and how they are being under attack. Again, this was an article in El País, a Spanish newspaper. So I guess all this kind of makes sense that New Hampshire is making national and international news after Article 10 appeared on the school district warrant. When I first saw the citizen petition Article 10 on this year's warrant, I was in disbelief. So I thank you all, school board, for unanimously not supporting this dangerous article. And I give thanks to all the citizens of Jaffrey and Ringe who amended this article. So again, sum it up, I thank you all. It's been a very, very difficult several years, but I do think there's more coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Hello, this is Tim Traffy. I'm from the town of Ringe. I have a big concern about the control that's occurring in our nation and in our world. And I would encourage all you board. Actually, before I even start, I want to congratulate all you guys, all you people that have served. I wouldn't want to be in your spot. You have a lot of decisions. You have a lot of input from those that are higher up in the state, the federal, and everything. And I take my hat off. So when I share what I share, I don't want to knock you down. I don't want to treat it as you guys ain't doing your job. But I have seen so many things in real life in different data than what we are seeing and propagated from our federal government, from our state, that kind of worries me, that what we hear on the news, what we hear from our CDC, different things, there's a lot of untruth and there's a lot of controlling that's going on. It's really, really concerns me. A simple thing, because we were talking about masking here, the effectiveness of a mask is very, very nil. I mean, I work in a machine shop. We are demanded to wear a mask. You can see where the stuff comes right around the side, you blow out and everything. It's not even an effective thing. You would need a fitted mask to work properly. So what it is ultimately we are driven as a people to see if you have to wear a mask, you have to wear a mask. If we are going to agree with it, if we are going to submit to it, to this control. And I encourage you to look. There are medical doctors, there are nurses, there are people that are putting their job on the line, their life on the line to actually profess the truth and all this stuff. And I don't know how we as citizens, how we as parents are to profess this and to share it when what we're bombarded with is untruths. And I look, there's many, I don't point out, like, that's the mask I wear. Lisa's wearing one. That's what I wear at work. I wear it because I'm demanded to wear it. My children wear them because they're demanded to wear them. And are they effective? No, I talked to a second grader, a girl, and this is a second grader, okay? She understands she doesn't understand the mechanicalness or the effectiveness. It's funny, these things are worthless. You just blow, you can feel the air blows out the sides and everything. So I look at it, I actually kid with people, I tell them, it is the best immune system builder. I touch the doorknob, someone else touches it, the seats in the bus, everybody touches. I touch one, it falls over my nose. I really believe when we wear the mask, it's the biggest germ spreader that exists. And another topic about the mask, there's a fellow, that's his job to build filters for a person. He works in all the industries, catching certain minute fragments from a person inhaling it. That's their job. They the things on the side to captivate the COVID virus. You need those mufflers on the side. And so I don't know, how do we as citizens speak out and realize COVID is a real disease? I'm not denying that. It's a real disease. I faced it. My wife's faced it. Everyone's faced it. And when are we going to come to realize that we are under control? It's a small word, but it's a huge thing for all of us in this room, all who are maybe listening to me right now, that we as a nation are under control. There's a control factor in here. And I just encourage you all to investigate. Look at the sidelines. These people have put their life, their jobs on the line to tell the truth. It's shut right off of Facebook. It's shut off all the things because it's false, is what it's claimed, but it's not false. So I encourage each, I feel for each one of you. You probably get phone calls, you probably get emails of all consideration, and I feel, but I want to encourage you guys. Like I forget which one spoke that, you know, you feel for those, like there's teachers that might be facing a disease, you know, facing something that, how do we protect them? You know, how is that done? You know, everyone has to face COVID with their own immune system. Everyone has to face it. You know, we need to speak on ways to build up our nutrition, build up our immune system to handle each of these things. It's a real disease. Like I said, I'm not denying it one single bit. It's real. I lived through it. And
Mr.
so I don't
Traffy?
know how to- yes, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. It's just,
go right
we
ahead.
set aside like 15 minutes and we're down to like one more. And I just want to make sure if anyone else wanted to speak that they get the last minute.
Okay, I hope I made my statement, and like I say, I encourage each of you to investigate further. Is there
Thank you very
anyone else?
much.
Sure. I used up all the time. I'm very, very sorry.
It's okay. We just,
Oh, thank you for stopping me, because I can go on and on and on.
all right. And so Nick,
Yeah, I just wanted to
Yeah.
give a final call. to
final
those
call.
online.
Yeah.
We don't currently have any hand raised, but if you do want to make a public comment, now would be the time to raise the hand so that you can do so. Give a couple more seconds just to make sure.
Yep. And that's, yeah.
All right, I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay. Well, we're then 30 seconds short. That's fine. Okay. Thank you all for your public comments and of course for attending and being informed. Okay, so we're on to the consent agenda. I had actually a question before we do the consent agenda. Under spring coaches, it says varsity basketball assistant. Should that be baseball?
That is a good catch. It should be baseball. I apologize.
That's fine. I just like, well, wait, is something else
we
going on?
like basketball around
We're in
here.
basketball season. and we've had basketball
All
all
year
night.
round.
Just don't let it end. That's right. Keep it
Just don't.
going.
Yeah, keep it going.
Okay. So consent agenda, someone want to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to remove the minutes of January 31st, public and non-public, from the consent agenda.
Okay, so for January, we're removing those. Anything? All right, so we've asked for those to be removed. How about now, can we have a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you, Charlie. A
I'll
second?
second. Lisa?
Thank you, Lisa. And roll call vote, John?
Abstain? Oh, no, sorry.
No, this is the consent agenda, not the removed
Right,
part.
right, exactly.
Okay, so that was a yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Christine?
Yes.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yes.
Thank you, Charlie.
Right.
Thank you, Patty.
I, with the note, my comment would be to thank the Peers for their generous gift to support the boys travel up to the White Mountain game.
Great, thank you. Alicia?
Yes.
Thank you. I say aye. So The consent agenda passes 700. Now I need a motion for the minutes that were pulled.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes, public and non-public, for January 31st, 2022.
Thank you, Alicia.
Second.
Patty, thank you. All right, roll call vote. John, now.
Abstain?
Thank you. Christine,
Yes.
thank you. Lisa,
Yes.
thank you. Charlie,
Aye.
thank you. Patty,
Aye.
thank you. Alicia,
Yes.
thank you. I say aye. So that passes 6-0-1. All righty. So we're up to our discussion, and it is about COVID data mitigation strategies, all that was presented in the superintendent's report. We also had comments during the public comment time. So let me just go around. John, do you have any comments, discussion to contribute at this point?
I guess I would say that appreciate the superintendent's report, and I agree with the recommendations.
Okay, thank you, John. Christine?
Well, I guess I want to thank everyone who's written in, even though we may not respond to every email. We certainly do read them, and we listen to your comments, and we take them into account. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, Lisa?
I completely concur with John and Christine, and thank you everybody for all of their input. And I'm ready to move forward.
Okay, thanks. Charlie, any comments?
Yeah, me too. I'm on board with the recommendations, been there for a long time, so.
Okay, thank you very much. How about Patty?
I am in agreement with John, Christine, Lisa, Charlie, Ruben, the folks who wrote to us. And I'm looking forward.
Looking forward, prayers. Yeah, good. Alicia?
I do want to reiterate, I guess, what several people have said. It's very helpful when people email, especially ahead of meetings. It's like Christine said, we don't always respond, but we do read each and every message. And it's really great to be able to hear from people before we go into making decisions. With that said, I'd like to make a recommendation that not a recommendation, a motion.
There you go.
I would like to make a motion that we move away from our decision-making matrix and make mask optional in the district.
All right. Thank you, Alicia, for your motion.
Can you say starting when?
Starting February 28th.
Starting tomorrow? I wrote off the email. I just want to, make sure. I have 3 different versions of an email. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm just joking. No, 28 makes sense.
I can.
But there are people who
There are
work in
people
the
here. There
schools,
are
yeah.
people here. I forgot some of you have to work.
Tomorrow's fine.
Yeah, tomorrow's fine.
Okay.
So,
Tonight, we can do it
tomorrow.
Give us some.
Oh, effective immediately.
Right.
Okay, so what is the motion? Read it just one more time. Can we say it?
Is that what you want immediately? Is that the consensus? I'd like to make a motion that we rescind our matrix and make masks optional immediately.
Okay.
And I
Thank you
guess
for your-
I want to just make a little addendum. I guess the understanding with my motion is that we also enter into a culture of understanding for people who do choose to wear masks and respect their decisions to do so.
Yep. All right,
I'll second.
thank you. Charlie,
I'll second.
thank you. And if there's any more discussion?
Do we need to add, thank you. Can we make an addendum to that of adding that we will communicate our current COVID status strictly on the website?
Does that need to be part of that motion? Yeah.
It could be a separate motion. You can do them, but with the idea, definitely need a motion
just throw it in
because it's
there.
in policy.
And also as a part of that motion that we move to the practice of reporting any COVID related information weekly on the website rather than
Okay.
emailing.
Let me see if I can summarize this motion.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, we've got a motion that says we are moving away from the matrix and we are making masks optional, respecting those who choose to, as well as those who choose not. And that the reporting from the superintendent will be done on a weekly rather than daily basis.
Nope.
No.
Just that we're going to be giving the information daily on our website for people to go there.
Okay.
if they so choose.
Sorry. All right.
Oh, did you? Okay. There is
So-
another piece, just before you go any further, there is some information that you need to be aware of as we go forward with this. We don't have the rights as a school district to stop mask wearing on buses right now. So
No.
public transportation, that is still a CDC order. So we have to continue on with that. So that's just important to know. We can't make that decision.
Yes,
And
that's federal.
Nick has his hand up. Marcia, would that be okay if Nick spoke?
Nick wants to speak? Yes, that's fine.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I just have a point of clarification on the motion. So the motion deals with moving away from the matrix and talks specifically to masking, but another component of the matrix deals with social distancing. Is that social distancing component to remain, or is it a true green situation? Just because if we're moving away from the matrix, that would imply that also social distancing would not be. And I just want to make sure that motion and
Effective, right.
communication wise, we understand that.
I mean, in my mind, if we're not utilizing the matrix in any workable way, then that would include that piece.
Okay.
But I guess that maybe needs to be more discussion. Does anybody have any thoughts about that?
Just for clarification, I was pushing for, I was recommending, advocating. Wow. I was advocating for the green status, which whether it be the matrix or not, but that would include social distancing
Being
being
removed?
removed.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was my understanding.
Okay.
I mean, I think people can set up their classrooms with social distancing if they want to, but it would not be a
It's not a
requirement.
have to.
Can I clarify just something? It doesn't seem to me that we are actually moving away from the matrix. We are going to the green level of the matrix. Like, what part of this is changing? I didn't think that we were changing the matrix. I think we're
just not
staying in the
using
main.
it.
And part of the reason we want to go to green is because the data that we've been using is skewed now because so many people have home tests, which is incredible and awesome, but aren't reporting. So it's a little bit like the data used to be when we first started the matrix. The data was taken from the state and people were reporting because that's how we had to do it. Now we're doing home tests and people don't report and the data is not accurate right now. So it just makes sense to look at our numbers, which are so low, and our community numbers are so low and they're tracking lower, that we go to the green side. But I'm not seeing where we're actually changing the matrix other than how we're reporting COVID numbers, which was in. Am I missing something?
I don't think so.
I think what I was, again, you're right, there's a difference between what I was recommending. I was not recommending a removal of the matrix. I was recommending us to do what we did in January with a reverse. Meaning, you look at the information tells you something different, rather than holding fast to something that is for no reason at this point in time. I wouldn't say no reason, but for less of a reason, then you always have, as a board, you have the ability to go back to that, and that might be a good starting point for any other decision that gets made for the rest of the year. Or you can eliminate the matrix. That's another avenue. I was just advocating for the green.
One of the reasons I was really excited about having this matrix was that when it was introduced and researched and proposed, it was done in a way that we could use this beyond COVID and use this as a guideline for future illness that is likely to happen and has happened. So I guess I don't want to just I don't want to say we're not going to follow it. I think by going to green, we are still following it. It's just that change of reporting.
Nick is raising his hand.
All right, Nick.
So I think to maybe solidify some points that everybody's talking about, based on Ruben's recommendation and what I understand, there is no intention to stop reporting data. So that would still be reflected as is the percentage of people out with an illness on the website where it's found currently. The addition would be that we would add the active COVID cases. Those would obviously be reported daily, Monday through Friday, as we do now. Data still collected. We're essentially freezing at that green level. So even though technically, if you look on the screen right now, we're in that yellow level, we're just freezing at the green. So we're still doing a lot of the steps that we would normally do. We're not stopping the back end data reporting. We're just kind of freezing in the matrix based on what's been discussed, the idea of data coming down, and especially in our own community. So I think that I don't know how you guys would want to word all the things that have been discussed. But I don't know if it's as simple as, if people are comfortable saying going with the superintendent's recommendations, which I've thrown back up on the screen. Obviously, Alicia made the motion, so she has the ability to amend as she chooses or not chooses. I know the only one thing that's in addition to what's kind of up here was that idea of just that the culture of understanding of those who choose to or choose not to. So adding that maybe to this slide.
Okay, so Nick, I know you said you put the recommendations back up. I don't know if folks that are on Zoom at home, I don't see anything. All I see is the little bar across the top that has like the district and who else is in, has the speaking ability.
So I have at least
So-
one report from a commenter saying that they see it.
Okay.
I'm projecting onto the screen in the room that we're in right now, an actual
Okay.
like
Then if
presentation.
it's just me, that's fine.
It might just be that you have to switch your setting back so that you're seeing the shared screen
That could be.
instead of the panel.
Okay. All right, that's fine. All right. So Alicia,
Yeah,
do you want to try and work that again, just so we are all clear? Because
you
we
read-
haven't been.
can you read back what I've said so far? Because I'm.
Yeah, of course. So right now we have a motion to move away from the matrix, masks being optional, effective immediately, and also to enter into a culture of understanding for those who choose not to. And then we had discussed an addendum about the COVID reporting on the website. And I don't believe, at least based on my notes, that there was ever a firm decision to add that in. So as of right now, the motion on the table only really addresses masking, not any sort of social distancing or the COVID reporting.
But I think what Ruben said is that if we're choosing to go back to the green, it does address social distancing because that's not required in the green.
Yeah, I'm just saying that right now, the motion
to
is to
say that
move
it's
away from the
separately?
matrix, meaning that we would not use the matrix at all.
I see
So-
how that can be understood.
That's the difference between the two. Yes.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please do.
Withdraw your original
Withdrawn.
motion, make a new one. Say exactly what you want to do.
Well, I want to do that with the exception of the move away from. But
So your motion would be to make
Move
masking
to the-
optional
Yeah,
social
move to the
distancing
green
not
on the matrix.
required, and
Change the
reporting
communication language.
to the website.
Right, okay. I think I understand now. Okay, so I'd like to rescind my previous motion and phrase the motion as follows. My motion is to move to the masking optional status, which would be the green status on the matrix, with the understanding that we are entering into a culture of understanding that allows for people to choose to wear a mask or not. This would include not using the practice of social distancing and going to a weekly reporting of COVID case data on the website.
Second.
Thank you, Alicia and Patty. Is there any more discussion? All right, John,
Aye.
thank you. Christine,
Yes.
thank you. Lisa,
Aye.
thank you. Charlie,
Aye.
thank you. Patty,
Aye.
thank you. Alicia,
Yes.
thank you. I say aye as well. Passes 7-0-0. You can take your masks off if you so choose. All right. Program of studies. So we had a great presentation last time.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I really appreciate the administrators coming and explaining the updates to us. I think they were really thorough. Their recommendations were well balanced. I particularly appreciate their listening to the students' input. I think that shows great respect and appreciation that they are the product of this district and they have their own interests. And I'd like to approve the JRCSD Program of Studies for 2022-23 as presented by the administrators last meeting.
I'd like to second that.
All right, thank you, Patty. Thank you, Alicia. Any discussion? All right. Then roll call. John,
Aye.
thank you. Christine,
Yes.
thank you. Lisa,
Aye.
thank you. Charlie,
Aye.
thank you. Patty,
Aye.
thank you. Alicia,
Yes.
and I say aye. Program of studies is passed 7-0-0. Okay, second reading on the policies. Are there any comments for the policy group?
Yes. I would
Go
like to
ahead.
speak, I'd like to speak to policy KEC.
Yep.
Specifically, I'd like to refer to RSA 191-1A:1-A, responsibility of the school board. And there's a couple of things. First, the school board is elected and therefore accountable to the electorate, which is our voters, taxpayers, parents, and residents. We represent the community, not the administration. The school board is the only voice that the community has. And it means that the school board is responsible for operating a school system and it can delegate its authority, but not its responsibility. If we're truly going to represent our community, we should be looking at this policy through the eyes of a parent or constituent that has an issue with a book or instructional material. No book goes into the library unless it's paid for by taxpayers or as an accepted donation. Instructional materials conform to the curriculum and program of studies approved by the school board. So whether a book or instructional material should be removed is ultimately the responsibility of the school board. That brings me to the concerns I have about this policy. A, books are instruction material. The only reason to spend taxpayer money on books of any type is for prescribed educational reasons. We shouldn't separate books from instruction material in the policy. B, it provides for no immediate action by the principal. The principal head should have the authority to remove instruction material if such action is deemed immediately necessary. C, when someone makes a complaint, we should assume that the complaint has an honest concern about the appropriateness of the material for use by children. When we're dealing with the exposure of children to inappropriate material, our reaction time should be a lot faster than 45 days. Where is our sense of urgency? D, instead of a 2-year arbitrary limit on reconsidering instruction material once it has been reviewed by the Media Review Committee, why not say it cannot be reviewed again until there is a revision of the material? If it's appropriate today, why shouldn't it be appropriate in 2 years if it hasn't changed? E, when a Media Review Committee is formed, why isn't the complainant a member? Why are the committee meetings closed and confidential? Why shouldn't the public know what's being discussed? There's nothing here that qualifies as non-public. The only thing a closed meeting does is increase distrust. F, giving the superintendent final authority for instructional material is shirking our responsibility to our community. Delegating operating authority is one thing. Delegating our authority to be the court of last resort for our parents and constituents is a totally different thing. So my input is that this procedure should be rethought through the eyes of a parent concerned about his or her child, not through the eyes of the American Library Association. We're not dealing with First Amendment right. We're dealing with whether or not we should spend taxpayer money on purchasing material that is or is not appropriate for the education we, the school board, have a duty to provide and the responsibility to decide. So that's my comments on that particular policy.
All right, thank you, Charlie. Others?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask for suggestion then on how do we proceed.
If it were me, I would go back to the policy committee and have the policy committee look at it, not from the perspective of trying to defend our choice of a book or our choice of instructional material, but to look at it from the parent perspective of a parent who has a legitimate concern about what their child is being exposed to. And kind of have a balanced approach to it, as opposed to an approach that says, gee, submit a form, 45 days later, we'll get back to you. And in the meantime, we'll form a committee and then we'll look at it in secret. And then when we decide, we'll write a report and send it to the superintendent.
Okay, but you stated your case. I think you stated it well the first time. I'm just wondering about the procedure. So, and you know, keep in mind that the parent has a right to express a concern whether it's legitimate or not. So, but let's not assume, because the fact that somebody hasn't, you know, come forward to object doesn't mean this is a very important issue, but it's also a tricky issue. It requires maturity, it requires fairness, respect, and we shouldn't be assuming either that every complaint should be considered as probably legitimate, because a lot of them won't be. And there'll be parents out there who very much want their child to be introduced perhaps to the subject matter at hand. Anyway, I don't know, Alicia, are you still?
I guess I'd just like to clarify, there's a first step in this policy that I think is just important on a human level. And that is that the person who has a concern about the material first talks with the person who is using the material in the school. And I think that's really a step that needs to happen first. The second part is that this policy does not mandate or suggest in any way.
I can't hear you, Lisa.
This policy doesn't suggest in any way that the Media Review Committee is a closed meeting. In fact, it says that a report will be provided I guess
If you look at
maybe,
the procedure that follows the policy, because part of the question I had the last time, the first reading, was do we have a procedure relative to this media committee, media review committee, reconsideration committee? And a policy was, or excuse me, a process was provided by the superintendent. I'm referring to that process. I think every board member got a copy of that process.
So for procedures, this is a second reading, so a couple things can happen. It can go back to the policy committee. It can also, a motion can be made to pass it, and it can be voted on tonight. A motion can be made to adjust things very small that are really not pertinent to the meaning of it. So if any meaning is going to change, it has to go back to policy committee. Marcia, do you mind if I
Yes.
speak?
No,
Okay.
no, you're fine in speaking. Go.
Okay, yeah, so I view things differently than Charlie does. I think that I view things as the school district is careful in how it goes about getting its materials. Library, I trust that we hire our librarians to do the research on what books are best for the school. I think that parents always have a choice as to whether their kids are, going to be, what in the sense of being able to help their kids understand what they approve as a book from a library or not a library. It's obviously it's a very political conversation right now. Charlie made the statement that if it was appropriate, if it seemed to be appropriate, then it's appropriate in 2 years. Evidently not. There are books on banned book lists that were appropriate at one point in time, and then suddenly, because society shifts, those books are being questioned again and so forth. I think we have our kids' best interests in mind. We're not there to expose them to things that are going to harm them. But I do think that, I see the value in having our librarians and the library, association give us the guidance to this policy. I think they've done some good work on the procedures. I was not part of the procedure development, but certainly they've done their research. So that's my thoughts on it.
so the policy committee did meet and we reviewed feedback from our first reading of this policy and still decided to bring it as proposed and revised for a second reading. So I guess I'd ask that the board vote on the policy at this point so that we can know whether we need to do further substantial revisions or not.
Can I speak to a couple of,
Go, Lisa.
So as far as instructional materials transparency goes right now, we are under a state mandate to have all of the instruction materials available. And that is in place, that's done. That's not something we change here. As far as transparency in the libraries, for well over a decade, every single bit of material that is in the libraries has been fully accessible online to anybody, and to any member of the public can go right on the website and see every single thing that is cataloged in our libraries. And it's been that way for 15, 20 years. The process of I'm a librarian in schools, and I have been through the process of challenged books. And there is the process of having it be a closed committee is for the protection of the students. That has very little to do with, we're not trying to hide anything. It has to do with the fact that we cannot share with what students are going through. every challenge that I've seen has not been a general thing locally. It's been because a student has had this happen, and we are checking that, and we can't bring that public. You can't expose students that way. So that conversation has to be private. And 45 days doesn't mean let's sit on our butts for 45 days. Again, the process goes to the principal, goes to the teacher, goes to the librarian, and the discussion starts. And the discussion always starts with a parent or the community member. We are actually an incredibly transparent community. We want parental input. We want community input. How many surveys have you guys done this year? Yeah, we want your input. So the committee has done its work, and the people who wrote the policies have done their work. And these materials that will be on the website are vetted and legally bound, and used by districts across the state. So I am ready to put forth a motion that we split this into two. That the policies, I would like to vote that we accept policy CA, policy EBBB, and policy GBGA as written.
That's GBGBA.
GBGBA as written.
Okay, so we have a motion that the first three policies that are listed here tonight.
I'll second that.
Charlie, you second that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the first three policies? Okay, John?
Aye.
Thank you, Christine.
Aye.
Thank you, Lisa.
Aye.
Thank you, Charlie.
Aye.
Thank you, Patty.
Aye.
Thank you, Alicia.
Yes.
Thank you. I say aye. So the first three policies pass 700.
I would like to make a motion that we accept policy KEC as written.
Okay. Policy, motion's been made that we accept KEC as written. I need a second.
Second.
Patty?
Yep.
Thank you. Discussion, further discussion?
Yes, Lisa mentioned that one of the reasons for being confidential is because of student information. Yet when I look at the media review committee, there's no student on it. The complaint is made by an adult, a member of the public, and it's reviewed by a committee. And there's no place in here that I see anything at all about any confidential information about any student. What we're doing is we're shielding a discussion and a review committee vote from public scrutiny. That's the issue that I have, is not with transparency, it's with the fact that we're trying to do things in secret that we have no business doing in secret. As far as the library is concerned, I absolutely believe that everything Ruben said is right. I have utmost faith in our teachers to have the right instructional material for the right books in the library. I mean, I absolutely believe that we're doing the right thing. But I think that if someone comes along and says, hey, look, this particular item, all right, is inappropriate for a second grader as opposed to a high school student. And I think that we're doing a disservice to our community if we turn around and say, hey, you've got to file a form, and that's the last you hear about it until the superintendent approves the report up to 45 days later. I just think that we can do better than that. That's my opinion.
All right, any other discussion?
Yeah, yes.
Go ahead, John.
I think these issues are difficult. They bring up the whole cultural differences among our communities. I think they have to be faced head on, but everybody needs to be treated with respect. I do think that, some kind of a discussion with the person who has a concern would be helpful in this, because, understanding, and I realize the forum will provide perhaps an opportunity to express that concern, but either the teacher or the librarian who's selected the material, perhaps the principal, should be involved, I think, in communicating with the complainant, with the parent, and see if maybe they can come to a meeting of the minds if the parent understands better the reasoning behind the material selection. Now, I know that's not always going to work, but at least an effort, I think, is useful. And then, beyond that, I do have some concerns about, taking 45 days. And I also agree that the school board should not be, sort of eliminated from this process. At some point, we need to, hear the reason for the concern on the part of the parent and the rationale of those who are making the recommendation. And I think we should have a role in deciding.
As a member of the, Marcia, can I?
Yeah, go ahead, Patty. I was just saying thank you to John.
Thank you, Joe. As a member of the policy committee that looked at this, we followed our typical procedure as a policy committee. We reviewed it. We looked at the New Hampshire School Board Association's guidance. We've looked at other schools. Other schools go as far as stating concerns related to, like, some go in one direction and it's pretty pro forma, just like ours. Some go as far as noting that they approve certain principles that are not exclusionary or having any concerns related to any framework that is outside of education in terms of ideologies. And we didn't add anything to that effect. We certainly could do that if we wanted to do that. I think one of the nice things about this policy was that we did receive so much from the schools, from the librarians and others. We don't usually have that kind of collaboration. I mean, that information came to us in terms of the procedures. So I appreciate what you're saying, but I feel like this is a good start, and that we should continue we should pass it tonight, and we should move forward and continue to look at those procedures as an R policy. So we have the KEC and then R, right? That's what's called R.
Yeah,
I mean, in
the
terms of
policies that go along
We
with it.
don't have a KECR.
But we do have procedures.
Correct.
So we can certainly add that.
Yeah,
down the
we're
line.
not usually in the habit of adding the procedures to policies, although there are some policies that have had procedures added to them.
Because that's what you're saying. You want to see that equally as prominent as the policy itself.
I'm concerned that, like John said, I don't want the school board giving up its authority.
I agree.
But doesn't it say in the procedures that a school board member is going to be present if available? And
It says that the decision of the superintendent is final. That means that any one of my constituents who says, hey, I disagree with that, I have to tell them, hey, his decision is final. The board cannot accept any review of that whatsoever.
but the board would be part of the committee.
No,
It says that.
it says one school board member.
Yeah.
Okay, it does not say that the board is going to make the final decision.
No.
So, I mean, I'm sorry if I'm a minority of one, but I just think that we need to take a look at it from a little bit different perspective. That's all.
It kind of gets to, do we think this is gonna happen once? Or once a week? You know, like how many times are our staff and librarians and going to be called into meetings to review this? And that's why I presume it takes 45 days, is the idea that it might happen more than once. There might be concurrent reviews happening, concurrent meetings. I mean, this could be, as a parent, I would be upset with 45 days. I admit that. But it does change the whole conversation if this is going to happen more than once a semester. If this is happening every week or multiple times a week, then how do we manage that?
I think that this policy actually answers that. This is an update to a policy we have. So this is nothing new. But the policy that we currently have is so outdated and it doesn't protect anybody. It doesn't help the parents. It doesn't, I think this actually answers that. Like the things in place for this allow us to have some real up-to-date, far more comprehensive work done to figure out what's best for this.
Right. That's what, if we say it'll be resolved in 45 days, but if we move that date up, then it's putting a lot of pressure on staff to resolve this very quickly. If this is something that's going to keep coming up, we don't know.
Is there a better date that you guys would feel more comfortable with? Would 30 days be more?
I'd like to also suggest another thing. Patty and I were just sort of looking over the.
I'm sorry,
revisions.
Alicia, couldn't hear you over here.
Patty and I were just looking over the revisions and noticing that in the revision, in the original policy, which has not been revised or reviewed since 2005, there was a provision in there that the complainant may request a review by the school board whose decision will be final following the step regarding the superintendent's decision. I don't know, Charlie, if it would make you feel better about this policy if we were to add that back in, that after the superintendent action, that if the complainant is still not satisfied with the report as received, that the request could further be reviewed by the board.
I think that's a part of it, but I think that the process needs to be looked at as well. I mean, I'm not talking about the policy as it's written. Okay, the policy as it's written, if it included the school board, that would be fine. But the process that supports it, how do I get to that point? And the way I get through that point is if a parent walks in the door to a principal, to a teacher and says, look, or a librarian and says, look, this is what my child brought home. And I don't think it's appropriate. And then they have that discussion with the teacher and they have it, or the discussion with the librarian. And the librarian turns around and says, well, I think you're wrong there. Then, but if you don't like, my opinion, go see the principal. Now, at that point in time, the principal then has to form a committee in this kind, and they have to first, the complainant has to fill out a form, then the principal forms a committee. And I just think that there are steps in there, like the principal might be able at that point in time to say, no, the parent is right. Let's stop it for now and go on. We don't have to continue using it. I mean, to me, I would address the process a little bit differently because the process to me seems very, very defensive. It seems designed for a teacher or a librarian to justify the material that they're using or the book that they have in the library. Right? It's not, to me, an equal approach saying, is this an honest mistake that we made relative to using this book in this or this material in this circumstance? Okay? And I think that's what's missing from the policy. There's no reason to go in private and have discussions about why we have this book or why we have this material. We should be able to say that right out in the open. Why am I giving this book to children? Why am I using this instruction material in the classroom? I should be able to do that. So from a policy perspective, I could agree with the policy with the board as a court of last resort, but I think the process needs to be looked at.
Marcia, do you mind if I speak?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So censorship is a real issue, people coming in and being able to streamline and take books off their shelves and things of that nature is certainly concerning. It would be concerning to any educational institution. It would be concerning to your public libraries. It just would. We had conversations about control and people controlling and so forth tonight, or there were some statements about that. This is another situation of, it's a hot topic right now. It's a very politically charged topic. There are topics all over that are politically charged on all sides of things. This just happens to be one of those. And certainly there are circumstances where, items need to be addressed because of appropriateness. But I think the rationale for the number of days is first of all, you have the people, once again, that you hired. Any real curriculum materials, those are all kind of purchased in a way. So we're really talking about like library books or maybe something that a teacher maybe brought in and is having, being used in the classroom or whatever like that. But those have all been also gone through. As a librarian, you are a librarian, you look at these books, you read the reviews, you go through and you select those. You think these are appropriate. These are for our students to have access to. And so then, there's a process. So then to have someone come in and say, this is not appropriate for this purpose or whatever like that. The reason for the review team is to make sure there's a thorough approach and to have multiple individuals involved in that process to make that determination. If it's a large piece of literature, assuming it's literature that we're talking about here, it takes time to read, and people who are making decisions should know the content that they're making decisions based upon. And yeah, there are a lot. 45 days is not just about having multiple reviews going on. I don't think that we'll have many reviews going on, but depending, but it could happen. But I think that all these individuals have their other jobs too. So it's another thing on top of that. So you're trying to make sure you're managing it all. So that's just a little bit of an understanding of the time frame. Yeah, I think you have to also take it very seriously, like, give the time there, because pulling the book off a shelf and saying we're not having this anymore, it's a big deal. It may not seem a big deal to certain, some people, but like, again, in an educational institution, that's a huge statement to make. And so I think we have to be careful about the roads we go down.
Another suggestion that I had was include the complainant as part of that review committee. Because that way I'm not as concerned about 45 days because they're involved with the process. And they understand, the decision that's made. They may not agree with it, but they'll at least understand how it's made. Rather than, some closed confidential committee meeting someplace and issuing a report.
Again, if I can speak, that would be very rare for any of our policies for a complainant to be part of a process of looking into something. If a parent, for instance, complained about a professional, an investigation might go on. That investigation would go on in private, typically. Would have to, not typically. And then at some point, a decision would be legally, yes, a decision would be rendered, and that person would not have, apart from maybe being asked, interviewed perhaps, and to gain information, you wouldn't have that person be part of the decision-making process going forward. It would be rare to have that within a
We're talking
policy.
different,
You're absolutely right. You're talking about
we're not talking about people.
literature and not personnel, but I'm just saying in the pattern of policy development within a school setting, you typically don't make that part of your process. If that's, the board has the right to make that part of the process. I'm just letting you know why it's not there.
So I just checking in on what I'm here, Charlie saying, in terms of the policy itself, the most important part there for him is around the board not abdicating its responsibility, and that the board have the final. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And then
would
the
like- I
other
would
side
like-
to it is not about actually this policy, it's about the process that sits behind it.
That's correct.
Right. So those are two things that need to
So
be.
Mark-
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I did make the motion and it was
Did
second.
make the motion.
I would like to address a couple of those. One in particular, I do not believe the school board should have the final say. The school board is in no way qualified to make that judgment. The people who are hired to do these jobs are certified. The people who are hired to do these jobs have put the money and the effort into the education behind making sure that what they're doing is the very best for the kids in the school district. And the school board does not have the qualifications to be able to override a professional saying this is why this material is necessary for the educational enrichment of the students. And I do not believe that is the school board's job. I would like to amend my motion to, on the second paragraph, the media, where it currently says the media review committee will have 45 school days to meet, discuss, and provide a report. I would like to adjust that to say the media review committee will have no later than 45 days. And if we can say preferably within 21 days. So between 21 and 45, I'm not sure the best way to say that, but it'd be great if we could have 3 weeks, but no later than 45 days. To just say, to help facilitate this to be more immediate. So we'll strive to meet within 21 days, but no later than 45 days.
And we're
but
talking
that's-
21 and 20 and 45 school days.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
just be clear.
Let's do 20, then 20 for the school days. But no other amendments, please, to my original.
Motion.
That's a just a point of process here.
Yep.
That's a pretty substantive change. And so it usually with something like that, it would go back to policy with those suggestions. It's not typical to make a change like that. And that, I mean, it's fine. The board can do that, but usually it has a policy committee for that purpose of discussing it and revising it. And then, of course, obviously that prolongs the policy being in place, but I'm just giving information.
Yep.
So I would like to remind my colleague that regardless of the qualifications of the teaching professionals or the library professionals, it shall be the RSA 189:1-A. The legislature has said it shall be the duty of the school board, nobody else but the school board, to provide elementary and secondary education to all pupils who reside in the district until such time as the pupil has acquired a high school diploma or has reached age 21, whichever occurs first. It also says the school board shall be responsible for establishing the structure, accountability, advocacy, and delivery of instruction in each school operated and governed in its district. There is no place in the RSAs that provides any authority for a superintendent other than what is delegated to him by the school board. And there is nothing in there that says that any other than a superintendent, any other person in the district has any authority. So it is up to the school board to make these decisions.
Thank you,
So,
Charlie.
We have a motion.
Yes.
Has the amended motion been seconded?
No. Does anyone care to second that?
For procedure to move forward, I'll offer a second. But I would like to make a comment too. I'm hearing, I feel like good input from the superintendent, because that's not how we normally make policy, by amending motions. I think I will vote against this because I don't think that's how we should do that. I do continue to think that the school board, like it or not, has a responsibility here, and we shouldn't try to abdicate it or pass it off. And I also would like to express my condolences to the policy committee, because this is a hot potato. It's, it really is very difficult, but because of that, I feel like, the input that you've heard tonight, I think it should be shared perhaps with the principals and the other people who've given the input. This is a tough one, and it's not fair to put it on your shoulders, but we need to get it right.
So
this is a policy that has been sent to administration, and they've read it over and given input and so forth. But just as a background.
No, and you let us know that beforehand, and we appreciate that. It's just that we've had a discussion now, and
Yep. No, and I think the discussion's been good, and it's been in public, and it's been very transparent. And I think, like you said, it is potentially a hot button issue. It's certainly a hot issue in the nation.
right. So John, did you second that motion?
I did.
Okay. Then we have a motion and a second. It was to amend the policy to say no more than 45 days, school days. And preferably closer to 20. So I'll do.
Can I ask
Yeah,
if the motion is to pass this with that amendment? Or are we adjusting the language right here like you would in a policy committee, and then having this further discussion going forward? This is why,
Right.
if we're gonna make some substantive changes, I really do think it's a better practice
To send it back to the policy
to-
committee.
to say, yeah, these issues right here should be considered and sent back to the committee for
I still feel-
wordsmithing review,
I do feel like.
unless you have some really nice
The
language.
policy stands as the one from 2005. So we do have a policy.
Yeah, we have a policy,
So
but
my only concern, I don't have a concern with it going back to policy.
mhm.
My concern is that the input we got from the staff who would be part of the committee that made it 45 days, we would be undermining that right now, and I'm not comfortable doing that. I would rather work in committee to be sure that the procedures are sound and that everyone's on board with it. It shows great disrespect to make a quick change. I appreciate what you're doing, but I also think that the people who will be putting this in place for however long it's going to be should have input on the time frame, and I wouldn't want to do that right now. So as much as I'm in favor of moving forward,
not in favor of moving the timeframe.
Okay, any more discussion? So there was a question about, is this a vote about wordsmithing the policy now? We're sending it back to be wordsmith. Lisa, are you still with your motion there?
Let's finish the process.
But what was the motion to pass it with those amendments? That's,
Yeah,
that's what I'm,
so-
that's my question was.
Yeah, so if the policy committee is of the mindset that we should not make this amendment without going back to the people writing it, then I withdraw my amendment.
Okay, so are you back then to your original motion, which was just on this policy?
I am.
Okay, so you made a motion to pass the policy as written.
Yes.
Okay. And do we have a second on that?
It was seconded.
It was seconded.
It was seconded. I don't even remember by who. Was it Patty?
That's what I said, I want us to move forward, but
Yes, the original second was from Patty.
Okay. So policy is written. We have a motion. We have a second. And if there's no further discussion, I'll do a roll call vote.
Actually, I have a question.
Yep.
Because, still learning. So if we vote against this, then it goes back to the policy committee with the recommendations, and then you tweak it, and then you
Yes.
resubmit it.
yeah, basically.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
just do keep in mind it will be a little bit longer until you see this policy back again, because the policy committee will be changing.
Yep. And so will the board.
Yeah, so the soonest we'd be able to meet as a policy committee would probably be
April.
April.
Okay. Are we ready for the vote? John,
No,
okay, Christine,
Yes.
thank you. Lisa,
Yes.
thank you. Charlie,
No,
thank you. Patty,
Yes.
thank you. Alicia,
Yes.
thank you. And I say yes. So this passes 5-0. Okay. Board committee updates. So Finance Committee, I think we heard during the public hearing, probably pretty much what the focus was at the meeting.
yeah,
So,
we focused on the special education funding, and that was primarily all we did.
okay,
Do you mind if I ask clarification? Because I don't think there was closure.
okay,
I understand that this was passed, so it is now policy and the procedures along with it are in place so that if something takes place in the meantime, was it the desire of the board for it to go back to policy still to address some of the issues that were mentioned? For instance, there were timeframes and who has final decision. The current, the 2005 policy has one way of putting it. The 2022 policy now has another ending to it. So I'm perfectly fine with the way it is. But I also, Charlie brought up a very good point about abdicating responsibility of the board. And it is the board's responsibility. It's fine if the board wants to provide that responsibility to the superintendent. But there seem to be some differing views on that piece right there. I'm not here to prolong the thing. I just want to make sure you make the decision that you wanted to make.
Right. Any comment? So I guess those that voted yes are feeling that what we passed is what we intended.
Well, speaking for myself, I would like to see if it's possible to reduce the number of days.
Okay.
And as Charlie said, I would like the school board to have responsibility if that's possible.
Okay. So we have one. So I just procedurally, I assume then we voted this in. This is what's working right now, since we just voted it in.
It's in
If the
place.
policy committee were to bring forward a modification, then we'd go through the readings and we would then vote again.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
we just wouldn't wait 17 years to do so.
Yes. Maybe a couple months. Okay, so why doesn't the policy committee take this all under advisement?
We will make detailed notes for whoever inherits that responsibility.
Okay. Anyone else before we move on? Okay. So, Charlie, thank you. With finance, policy, I think we've probably talked pretty
We're
good
good.
tonight.
We heard all we've been up to.
Facilities. Have you had a meeting recently? Anything new since the last time we met as a board?
No, we have not had a facilities committee meeting since then. There is, however, one facilities related issue that I'd just like to mention, which is that the engineers who have designed and who will build the Jaffrey Roundabout Route 202 modifications met last week. And they are looking at a fairly long construction process, which I believe they intend to begin next year, 2023. However, they are trying to finalize plans this spring. Now, they have offered to meet with us as a school board to hear any concerns or any design interests that we might have. And in particular, our school is right down the road, maybe 200 yards from the intersection in question. Many of our students do walk through that intersection, and just how that's going to work for them and how easy the transit will be is something that will affect our students. So we have been in touch. I was in touch with the engineer who suggested that he would be willing to meet with the school board. Ruben and I think you, Marcia, encouraged that we do that. And so hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a chance to set up some kind of a meeting. And what I've asked them is if they would be willing to come to one of our school board meetings
Okay,
to talk with us.
good, because I was just running through my head. It's like, okay, so we have to get things out. That'd be great if they could come to one of our meetings. Makes it a lot easier. So are you, yeah. I don't know if the next one is the appropriate one or not, but that would be great. Goals. We meet quarterly, so we haven't met since the last time. Education committee, I'm trying to think of the sequence here. I think we met and then we had a board meeting after that already.
Nope.
Met on the 17th, so last, or sorry, the 10th. There wouldn't have been a board meeting.
There wasn't a board meeting. Okay. All right.
It was a wonderful presentation.
It was.
And
It
to
was
use
great.
the, use the language that was said earlier, you can binge watch it.
Yes.
It's not quite on Netflix yet, hasn't been picked up, but we do have those videos from the education committee.
Riveting stuff.
And they are,
Riveting.
it is riveting, and it's filled with an incredible amount of information that we have out there.
Yes, it was really great. It was on the professional learning communities across the district. So I would encourage people to watch that.
It might not be up yet. I'll have to double check. I don't remember if I've uploaded that yet or not.
Okay. But it was very good, and then you would have a much better understanding of what the professional learning community is and the goals, and then where we are within the development at the different schools with that. So it was really it was exciting, actually.
They also gave us what they needed from us.
Wellness, have you had?
We haven't had a meeting, but we are starting one of our roles and responsibilities is to review the nutritional environment of the schools. So some of the committee members met for lunch. Were you there, John?
We went to lunch in the middle school here, and a member of the head of the finance committee joined us. Charlie speaking, and we also three of us went over to the Ringe Memorial School for breakfast earlier last week. So
nice.
And our goal was just to see what was the quality of the food, what were the choices like, and just to try and come up with some firsthand experience to see if we can initiate a conversation with the food service about what's going well and what, if anything, could be improved.
Great. And anything on communication, Nick?
Again, kind of similar to what I've been saying over the past couple meetings. Hope to meet after voting season's over. Just really tied up with a lot of different projects right now.
Yep. Thank you.
I
Okay.
do want to note, I want to thank Nick for his work with not only the school communication and broadcasting and so forth, but also helping the towns.
Yeah. Yeah. Got a good system going here. Okay. We're up to public comments. Number 2.
All right, so I'll throw the policy right back up just in case we had anybody come in that wasn't there before, and I'll just quickly explain the process one more time. So if you are in person, obviously same rules apply. Ask for the microphone, we can give it to you first, last name, town of residence, follow the policy. If you are remote, very similar process. Just use the hand raise feature at the bottom of your screen, regardless of whatever screen you're on. We can then address you from there. Again, first name, last name, town of residence. So I guess we'll begin with in person, just because you're here and you can wave at me. Does anybody in? Do you want me to?
Yeah, what was that? I could not hear it, so.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So yeah, our
Mike.
chair could really hear because you didn't have the microphone, but she was just essentially asking a procedural question about if further public comments are made, does that prevent the board from making decisions after? Is it more of kind of a meeting closure type of thing.
Go ahead, John.
So in general, sometimes there's a public comment that's very specific and that the superintendent might answer right away. But in general, we take the input, try and consider it and, use it in making future decisions.
Can you hear me, Marcia?
Yep,
Okay,
that was
cool.
loud. Yeah.
My name is Megan Caruana. I live in Ringe. I think that was everything. So I just wanted to bear with me. These are not pre-prepared thoughts, but back to the matrix, I just would like you guys to maybe just reconsider. I know you were throwing back and forth the idea of either eliminating it or putting it aside, but then you ultimately decided to keep the matrix in play, but be in the green category. And just as a parent hearing that, it is a little bit confusing to know that the matrix is still live with the community transmission still being there, but deciding to stay in green and then not really knowing at any point when that could be shifted. So it's almost like it would make more sense for the matrix to still be a tool that the school board could still implement at any time that they choose to do that. But for the purpose of the decision that you made, maybe have it be to the side, because the decision to be in green conflicts with the current community transmission, unless I understood it differently than what was decided. I think that's all.
So your question, can you change?
Well, I think any change that you've made up until this point has been after talking with each other and deciding, but yeah, I guess it's just confusing. And I know that after this meeting, when you send out your communication as to what the decision was,
Yeah, I already did.
it just may come off as confusing. So it's just a suggestion, or maybe it's further thought into that. Yeah.
All right.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
So just, do you mind if I read the communication I sent out?
No, go for it.
Because this might help.
Okay. Okay.
Get rid of the first sentence or two that I put in there.
Mhm.
The JRCSD school board voted tonight to move the district into the green level of the COVID-19 mitigation strategies matrix effective Tuesday, tomorrow. Technically it was immediately, but this means that masking will be optional and social distancing will not be required, regardless of school district or community transmission rates. This applies to all locations on district properties. The board will continue to review COVID-19 data trends at its regular school board meetings.
Okay.
Talks about the board. So it does say green level,
Yeah.
but it also says regardless of community transmission rates.
Okay. Yeah. So that does at least put that asterisk, but
Mhm.
yeah, I guess it leaves me as a parent just feeling a little uneasy, being like, okay, like at what point could that change just out of nowhere? But thank you.
Well, and it wouldn't change without a board meeting.
Okay.
Like I wouldn't
Okay.
just change it. So.
Does anybody else- Good. Thank you.
And we would notify people of what the board content would be prior to meetings. Yes, Nick? If that's
And
okay,
just as
Marcia,
an-
can Nick speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Yep.
Yeah, just as an additional note, much like with last time when a change was made by the board, we put a bold message on the top of the matrix on the website that reflects the change. So we had said that regardless of whatever appears on the matrix, this is where we're at. So that was reflected both on the matrix and in the actual framework. So that would be the case again this time around.
And the reason for the green is because in the green, it actually says mask optional, no social distancing. So that was the language already in place.
All right, if there's no one else in person, is there anyone remote that has raised their hand?
I'm not seeing, let me just double check. Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. All right, so we're on to board matters or future items. Nothing? Okay, if that's the case, then I can entertain a motion for adjournment.
A motion that we adjourn, Lisa?
Thank you, Lisa.
Second.
Patty, thank you. And we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.